Hello, good evening, and welcome to episode 10 of the Majority Podcast. My name is Mark Devlin, and we are here tonight streaming to you live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. My co-hosts tonight are Niall Fraser and David Griffiths.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Hello,
I hope you're in for a great show this evening. Yes.
And what will we be talking tonight on Scotland's #1 anti-nationalist podcast?
Tonight,
Tonight I'm going to be having a small rant about the lockdown powers being extended for a further 6 months.
6 months, my goodness. This week, to borrow a football expression, I will be asking, has Nicola Sturgeon lost the dressing room?
And I will be asking the question that's on everyone's lips, not really, is Nicola Sturgeon a smart cookie? All that and much more after our titles. Well, welcome back. As always, we start the podcast with a shout out to our donors. We did a crowdfund for the podcast and they donated equipment and for running costs. If you would like to donate to the Majority, we would like that. Please go to majority.scot/donate. Everything you donate is appreciated, of course. I'd like to also say a huge thank you to our new followers who are coming to us from the UK Union Voice Facebook page. Thanks a lot to Phil, who runs the page, for getting us started there. And we hope that this is part of growing the podcast to a bigger audience. Pete, Niall.
You can supercharge our broadcast this evening. All you need to do is a like, a share, a comment, whatever media you're on, get it shared. Get a comment in nice and early. We want them short, succinct. So we don't want essays, everyone. So we want them up on screen, and you can't do that way on essay. So supercharge us, give us a share, because we're growing at a rate of knots.
Right, without much further ado, I think we will start on a first topic of the night, which actually is going to be mine tonight, which is Nicola Sturgeon a smart cookie? Now, the other day, I was quite surprised to see this article in the Scotsman here, written by Murdo Fraser. Nicola Sturgeon's reputation as a smart cookie is crumbling. Wow. Okay. Right. Okay. So if it starts with, I think I've got the First Minister all wrong. The revelation came to me just last week when I asked her about pensions and who would pay them if Scotland ever left the UK. That's a reasonable question. While clearly I disagree with Nicola Sturgeon in many things, in the decades I have known her, I have always thought of her as one smart cookie. I had respect for her. Wow. Okay, so Niall, what do you think of that?
Well, I actually think that's a shocking admission to ever have thought that Nicola Sturgeon was smart in any way, shape, or form. Honestly, I think she's not the most intelligent person in the world, is the way I would put it. And in fact, I think if she wasn't the First Minister, she would be selling Avon like her sister. And what it is, it's the surrounding herself with a battalion, a Roman unit of special advisors that construct the illusion of intelligence, the air of intelligence that she obviously she's got a reputation, according to Murdo Fraser, as a smart cookie, which
well, you say she would maybe sell Avon. I don't even know she can do that. She can't even sell independence after 14 years. I mean, basically, we're looking at, think of all the smart things she'd done. She was hauled in front of a committee for a botched attempt to trying to frame Alex Salmond.
Yep.
I mean, that's not much of a smart cookie, is it? She's worked for years and years in independence on a failed project, a project that basically can't happen. Well, that's not very smart either. And, there's a whole load of them. I'm sure you can just come up with a few, just even, off the top of your head.
These things happen, Gaff, was an amazing gaff. You know, the whole racism story with Janie Godley, and she just comes out with these things happen. She's not smart cookie, guys. Come on.
I would say she is a mediocre intellect who is failing to live up to her own reputation as even that. The fact that Murderwood said he considered her smart, really? Well, how would you consider somebody who has made such a litany of disasters as Nicola has in recent weeks? I certainly wouldn't refer to her as a smart cookie. I wouldn't say she's crumbling. I'd say she's falling apart. Mouldy cookie, maybe. Certainly not a
It's a
smart one.
strange thing because it seems to me like a little bit of a term of endearment. You know,
Yeah,
you might
yeah.
say someone is smart or conniving or something. Then, but this is the thing. It seems a bit strange to me. Why would you build someone up to take them down when there's no
Yeah.
building up to begin with? I mean, we're building up like you're saying, oh, she's really smart, but no, she isn't, right? You say, instead of saying that, you should be saying, no, she's not very smart, and this just proves it, right? Why would you go out as to your opposition, say your opposition is really smart? I don't really get that. You could possibly say that in private, and you could say, right, well, she's a bit tough, a tough cookie perhaps, right, in private, but you don't then say that to your followers in public. It seems counterintuitive or counterproductive to me.
Counterproductive indeed. Yep. Very bizarre. A bizarre out. You could see he was maybe just using that, I don't know, to make a point to preface his article, which is going to dismantle this idea of her being smart. I wouldn't have used the phrase in the first place. It would have been far better to say she's showing distinct signs of being on the slide or something like that, which is something I'll touch on just shortly,
I think he actually detracts from what he's trying to say by his opening gambit being, I used to think she was a smart cookie.
Well, no.
I've got some comments here.
It's,
I wouldn't use the word intellect.
I just stopped reading after that point. It was like, well, who's Murdo Fraser hanging about with that he thinks that Nicola's smart?
That's a good question.
Seriously, that's...
Yeah, it's a pretty strange thing to say, you know.
Yep.
Yes, we're getting quite a lot of viewer comments at the moment.
Creepy and cookie, I love it.
Yes.
Creepy
Smart.
cookie. He's mad. I've never heard her say anything smart in her life, says another one. James Sanderson says, smart cookie, must have used the wrong dough. Yeah, so
keep the comments rolling in, guys. Keep them coming in.
A bit of a pattern, you know. These with the Scottish Tories a little bit, you know. Just as well, there was Andrew Bowie who announced him and his wife's pregnancy the same day as Kate Forbes, and he kind of did a congratulations to both of us type post, and you're like, okay, you know, it's you don't need to do that. They won't do that for you.
Absolutely
they hate you. Right?
Well,
they hate you and don't want anything to do with you. They want to get away from you as much as possible. And so why be nice to them? I mean, there's not necessary to be nice, but it's like they're out to destroy everything that you stand for. And you want to say, oh, well, they have, you know, here's, have a nice life. It's like, I don't get that really.
Bizarre.
Well, I sort of disagree. Tiny touch. You know, maybe he's trying to de-radicalise Kate Forbes. Maybe he's trying to bring her over from the dark side to the light, from toxic nationalism. But that said, I'm happy for them both.
Of course, happy for people, but it shouldn't become a public thing again. It should be, it's fine. You can say privately. Well, but would you say it privately? Then, if you wouldn't say it privately, why would you say it in public? That seems a bit strange to me. All right. So a bit strange. We're looking at. We actually ran a poll about this on the majority, and I think as usual it came out at like 97% of folks said that she wasn't a smart cookie, and there were quite a number of comments about that underneath. So please have a look on Twitter and on Facebook. Coming up next, David's going to talk a little about has Nicola Sturgeon lost the dressing room, to use his football metaphor. And then beyond that, Niall is going to talk about the ongoing,
never-ending lockdowns, guys.
Never-ending lockdowns. So we will be back with that in a second. Well, we have a lot of people watching today through our partnership, I suppose, with UK Union Voice, who have let us use their page to broadcast this. And so a lot of new people. We had almost 100 simultaneous viewers, which is probably 10 times as much as you would see on the SNP party conference.
Yes.
And welcome to all our new viewers, you beautiful, beautiful people. Get your
Great to
comments
have you
in,
here.
guys. Get your
Yep.
comments in, like, shares.
Please interact with us.
Thanks for
That'd be
watching.
terrific. Yep.
Right. Okay. So we're going to talk. David is going to talk a little bit how she lost the plot. David.
Indeed. Yeah. So very much following on from that theme, and I didn't know we were going to, both of us were going to talk about this tonight until quite recently. There's an expression in football when you lose the dressing room, which means that you don't really have control of playing matters any longer. It happens to people who've been formerly very successful football managers. But further to that, it looks to me like she's a woman who's lost the plot, lost her grip, and is losing control even of her own party. And if you look at the last week to 10 days, I think this is evidence of an unmistakable decline in the First Minister's performance. Now, I'll slightly paraphrase Murdo Fraser here, if you like, when I say whether you agree or disagree violently with what the First Minister says, she has always demonstrated a keen political instinct, I would say, until now. If you just look at what's happened in the last week, firstly, Sturgeon waded into the pensions debate to back up Ian Blackford when he claimed that the UK would continue to pay Scottish state pensions after Scotland becomes independent. Now, despite Blackford's interview showing that he was considerably more clued up than Blackford was on the subject of state pensions, which was quite a sight, Sturgeon nonetheless felt empowered and ennobled, and that she had to jump in with both feet and say, yes, he's quite right. Of course they would. They've got a moral responsibility, etc., etc. Yes, and it's absolutely clear, and there's a precedent because a UK Treasury Minister claimed in 2014, or stated in 2014, that it would happen. Well, and she actually referenced the white paper. Now, the white paper, as she said wrongly, was in 2014. The white paper, the independence white paper, was actually in 2013. She claimed this week, she backtracked on what she said last week, and she said, oh, yes, yes, of course, Scotland would have responsibility to make pension payments out of the pension pot. Hang on, Nicola, there is no pot. We've been through this. National insurance payments for this year pay the state pension bill for this year. You don't make your national insurance contributions, which go into a large pot upon which you draw years later. That doesn't happen. To claim that it does,
here, I think, is why is there such a mess on this issue from the party? I mean, why did Blackford, blurted that out as if it was some kind of revelation? And then, a few days later, Sturgeon has to stand up and say, I had the video, but it seems to be missing at the moment.
Yeah.
And she says, well, actually, Scotland has to pay pensions. Why would they, not just about disagreeing on it, but why would they even bring the issue up? Because it's instantly that issue is brought up, pensioners get the fear.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah.
Pensioners are, if there's one thing that worries old age pensioners, it's the prospect of running out of money. We know that. So it's quite an unforgivable thing to do. And when she subsequently this week, i.e. yesterday, in a TV interview, backtracked, she still tried to obfuscate the issue, saying, oh, yes, of course, once independence happens, we'll have to be a debate about historical issues and assets and their distribution. That's got nothing to do with state pensions. Nothing whatever. The two things are completely separate. So I can't understand that either, unless she's just trying to build up yet more grievance by saying, look at this, it's a disgrace. These people, you've worked all your life, you've made pension payments, and they won't even honour your payments, which is simply not bending the truth. That's lying. That's simply lying to the people. So she has to face the fact that Blackford got it wrong, so did she. Second, she, as we all saw in Holyrood last week, in her customary condescending manner, she made it clear that it makes perfect sense for Scottish schools to look at lopping off the bottom of each classroom door to improve ventilation flow as a safeguard against COVID transmission. Now, this is, without question, the most absurd idea the SNP has come up with in their time in office. It was met with incredulity and hilarity by every commentator and non-NSNP politician in the UK. The only person sticking up for Sturgeon in this was good old Vary Hunter, who will just... we know what she does. Nicola catches a cold and Mary sneezes. That's what happens. So this week, just like Sturgeon did with the pension fiasco, Christina Somerville, or not Christina Somerville, Shirley Ann Somerville backed down and told us very unconvincingly that the SNP never really planned to do this at all. And what we were guilty of, it was our fault. It was our fault for willful misunderstanding of what first Somerville and then Sturgeon had actually said. Sure.
No,
Well, it's quite
it's unacceptable.
something, it's like we all heard it, we all saw it. We saw Nicola Sturgeon trying to that ridiculous thing about the air inhibiting devices. We wrote on the majority, don't let the air inhibiting device hit your arse on the way out.
Exactly.
It gets back to the whole fact that the SNP are fantasists. They're fantasists.
Quite right.
Don't believe your lying eyes. I was not defending cutting the bottoms of doors off last week.
Yes.
I did not do that. That did not happen. And
So
it's got poof. It does not exist anymore.
Going on. It's quite something here.
Yeah.
Someone says here, actually, this is actually quite important. Someone says it's the second most absurd. The first is thinking that independence is a great idea.
Great comment.
Other than that, of course, when we say it's not independence, it's breaking up the UK. Anyone, you might think independence is okay. You might consider that. But breaking up the UK is an absolute disaster. And it's time we reframe that in general.
I agree.
I think there's a pattern here of people trying to get in, these ridiculous plans and ridiculous overreach, David.
Yep, I agree with that. And I think that John Ferry, who was one of the commentators on social media, made the point today. Is this that they're actually realising that their plan doesn't work, that their far-fetched idea of independence will not work? It can only be something like that, because if they're making claims like pensions for one, and this nonsense about they're making excuses for continued COVID lockdown restrictions long after Boris Johnson has said actually we're lifting them all. I think it's just they're looking for any passing bandwagon to say, oh yeah, we'll try this, and it's just ludicrous, and everyone's seeing through it straight away. I've never seen such hilarity a suggestion by the Scottish Government, and even this week, and let's be honest, the Scottish Fire Brigade Union said, look, we want an urgent meeting about this, showing absolute disgust at the idea that you might start attacking what are fire doors in schools. I mean, it's staggering.
But I think maybe got that wrong, David. There couldn't have been a meeting demanded because it didn't happen. It didn't happen.
We all willfully misunderstood now. That's what we all do. We willfully misunderstood. So, and again, as with Sturgeon's backtracking on pensions, nobody believed the word that Shirley Ann Somerville came out with either, because she's clearly just stating.
There's so much backtracking going on. Can absolutely right. Go forward. It's not even one step forward.
It's several steps back, indeed.
Just constant steps backward. And the thing though is that with all these missteps, as it were, their followers will still accept it, because that's a price to pay for independence.
Indeed,
right?
Anything for indeed. And I mean,
just go, oh yes, it's just a funny thing. The doors. I mean, let's go for independence. And so, I mean, to some extent, I've seen some of these discussions on Twitter about the pensions row, and the people are just living in a world of delusion. So they just think they think even when Sturgeon says it. Right, it's like the Gers thing. Even when Sturgeon says Gers is a reliable source, they're like, no, Gers isn't a reliable source. Exactly. It's just it's insanity. It really is.
Sorry, I must confess. Last week I wasn't talking much about the pensions because I've to be honest, I've not really started thinking about my pension. But what I was investigating was all these journalists, David Leask. Commenting on this thread on Twitter about the pensions, and they don't know what's going on.
No, they don't.
They have no idea.
It reminds me. I always bring a historical parallel here. It reminds me of the guy Deep Throat, the character Deep Throat in the movie All the President's Men, who was feeding information to the journalists because he was so appalled at what was happening in the White House, and he said, "What you've got to understand is." These are really not very bright guys. And that's what this reminds me of. These are people who had not only lost the plot, I don't think they ever had the plot. And the third example of this, to me, this underlined to me more than any of these, that Sturgeon simply isn't in control. And this is the story last week, which you'll all have read about or heard about, David Goodwillie, the footballer, who signed for Raith Rovers Football Club in Kirkcaldy. Val McDermott, who's apparently a crime author. I've never seen any of her books, and I've no intention of checking them out either. But she's a high-profile nationalist and a big friend of Sturgeon's. Val McDermott is a sponsor of Raith Rovers. She's obviously a supporter. and a sponsor of the club. She decided, as soon as David Willey was signed, she said, no, that can't be. I am withdrawing my sponsorship because I don't agree with this. The issue being David Goodwillie was accused and tried of rape some years ago, 5-6 years ago. He wasn't convicted, but in a subsequent civil action, which his accuser took out, a judge deemed that he had in fact raped this unfortunate girl. Terrible story, really. Now, McDermott said this is not the sort of person Raith Rovers should be signing. Unbelievably, the First Minister joined in and said, yes, I would call on the SPFL to intervene here. What neither of them apparently knew was David Goodwillie had been and was still playing for Clyde at the time this all happened. He had just been transferred to Raith Rovers. He has been playing for Clyde since 2017, which is the year the civil action was taken out. He's played 140 times for Clyde in that period without a single word from the First Minister or anyone else in the government. This is ridiculous. She's only got involved now because her friend said, oh, have you heard about this? Oh, now let me tell you, I'm going to sort this out. It reminds me again of Margaret Thatcher when she was said, okay, who are our big profile sponsors in the entertainment world? What about this chap Monty Python? Is he one of us? That's how out of touch she was. She didn't even know what Monty Python was. And you've got the First Minister doesn't even realise that this guy, very high profile gentleman, but Scotland International some years ago, has been playing all this time after this civil action. But oh no, as soon as her pal is a little bit embarrassed by it, oh, in comes the First Minister acting as judge.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if it's actually a democracy or a palocracy. You know, everyone, if you
palocracy,
get
I love that.
You go like, oh, okay, my pal, Sturgeon's like, oh, my pal Godley, you know, I'll give her £10,000 worth of taxpayers' money, even though half of the country dislikes her intensely, and not just the dislike of her, that she's been a bunch of racist and quite sickening tweets. Now, I mean, any casual observer would know that Godley, you know, with her Trump as a C word, you know, placard, is obviously an offensive and divisive character. But she persisted because she persisted in hiring her for a COVID campaign that was supposed to go out to every single Scot, right? Every single Scot was supposed to see this campaign. And, you know, why would, you know, I think most of us, if certainly on our side, we would be like, if
you wouldn't listen to health information coming out, you would just disregard it, especially coming from Godley. Remember the actual
through the TV.
Yeah, you remember the video? She was dressed in like a shell suit. It's just nuts.
Oh, it's
so
crazy. The
thing though is this: it's like I'll give a job to my pal, Eve, despite all the evidence, despite all this stuff, and these terrible tweets, and then when it all blows up, well, you just kind of say, oh, these things happen. It's not these things don't just happen. Absolutely you made them happen. This wasn't just a casual event. Janie Godley just didn't walk into the studio one day and say, hey, I'm here. We're making this ad. She was invited in by the Scottish First Minister because she was her pal. That's as simple as that.
Not only that,
McDermott, she got this Goodwillie action done because she was their pal. Absolutely. Now, this just basically tells me that if you're a pal of Sturgeon, POS, there's another meaning for that, I guess, is that you would, you know, get special treatment. And is that the way our democracy, such as it is supposed to run?
Absolutely right. And, you know, I would say this forms a very clear pattern. It indicates that she's not on top of her brief any longer, because up until a year ago, there is no way Sturgeon would have been involved in 3 very, very high profile and very poor displays of her bad judgment, as she has done in the last 10 days. And if you look, she's also talked recently about, she's referred while in Parliament to having lost a pregnancy. Now, that's a terrible thing for anyone to go through, but I'm not entirely sure why the First Minister needs to keep raising this. I mean, I really didn't see why she needed to make that gratuitous mention of what must have been a very traumatic event. Secondly, she admitted in an interview only this week that she considered resignation last year. I believe you. I absolutely believe it. She looks physically and mentally exhausted. She looks knackered, to use the colloquialism. And every week, of course, her family causes her more embarrassment. You've got a wayward sister who's either telling the world why she chose to spit on her ex-boyfriend, or she's revealing that she does tarot card readings for a living, except she doesn't do it in the
leave
standard.
that till a little bit later in the programme.
Yeah, indeed, sure. Indeed, but this is, just to summarise, she strikes me as a person who's lost her iron grip on the party Anna's lost her own personal grip on reality, and I just don't think she's going to last much longer. Who knows?
Okay,
Just
I
a
think there's
quick
quite a lot of
highlight
comments
on the
coming
comments.
in on
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
Sorry, I had a quick.
So we had Tommy Boy, Sturgeon's intervention.
Say she needs psychiatric help. Well, I don't know if it's
Yep.
as bad as that, but probably she needs a good rest, and we need a good rest from her. I think that's
right.
perhaps what
That's
we
for
can say.
sure.
Coming up after this next section is going to Niall. Is going to be talking about our lockdowns that are never ending, the never-ending
Yes.
story of the Scottish lockdown.
Yep.
Right.
Well, give it a go then.
These lockdowns, I mean, it was predictable that this was going to happen. It really was. Everyone's seen this coming. Of course, she was going to want to hold on to the powers. Right. So what a horrible, wee, fearful place Scotland has become. I mean, it's natural for Sturgeon to take 180-degree opposite decisions to Boris. And it just goes to show you the difference in the leaders across, all the four nations. The four-nation approach to COVID in the beginning should have been a race to relinquish the powers, to a race back to normalcy. But it's turned the opposite. Sturgeon feels that, let's trundle this on for another 6 months, which takes us into September, which then takes us into the winter season, which takes us into the variant bingo. And like you said, Matt, it's going to be never ending. I think it's insane. I think it's crazy. I want to phone up the Canadian truckers and get them over here once they've sorted Canada out.
Yep.
The whole thing's just bananas at this point. And I think Scotland is so done with COVID, so done with COVID restrictions, so done with vaccine passports, and they're so done with Sturgeon at this point. That was the last straw for me. It's like I said, it's predictable that she was going to do this. Predictable. I mean, gentlemen, what do you think of this?
I think we've got the main issue here is that England has stopped all restrictions and is going to stop.
Yes.
Stop all restrictions. So, what is it about this virus in Scotland that is more virulent? That is worse here? Well, the virus. That's if you consider the virus as being Omicron or being the COVID. The actual virus is Nicola Sturgeon, who's keeping us all in masks and who's keeping us wants to continue her daily party political broadcast on the BBC and other channels. So I think that's really what it is. It's about extending control and knowing, I think, to some extent, that when this is over, that the recriminations are going to begin. So it's like a balance. At the moment, she can go up. And by being in the TV every time, although it's getting less and less and less, she's getting less and less. But as time goes on now, it's going to be, well, we've forgotten about the actual virus, but now we want to know, well, wait a minute, your results are much worse than England, actually.
Right.
So that's going to be a big issue. And there's going to be, inquiries and all this kind of stuff. And none of that is going to look very good for Nicola Sturgeon.
I mean, we've got generations of people being born in Scotland now that think that this is normal to be locked in, normal to be wearing masks, normal. That it's crazed. It's absolutely crazed. And we've got, so I'm just quoting for the BBC article, and it's Professor Leach, the dentist. He's very hopeful, but this is not after the pandemic. We're not close to after the pandemic. We're getting close to the end of Omicron. So he's alluding to the fact that this is just one strain. We've still got how many more letters in the Greek alphabet we got? We'll be in this forever, and we just need to stop this, honestly.
Well, we saw a massive overreaction to Omicron, didn't we, from the Scottish government? We know that. They overreacted.
There's a cartoon here we saw the other day. Welcome to Free Scotland, where every COVID rule is pointlessly stricter than England's
Twins with Wales.
Quite right.
This whole four nations approach has been a disaster from the beginning. It's basically allowed the Nationalists to act as an opposition to the UK government, and for the media to use Nationalists to beat the UK government up at every turn. And irrespective of results or reality or sanity, that's what they've done. And instead, from the beginning, we should have had one nation, one UK approach, and then we could all deal with it. That would be straightforward.
I mean,
and we'd all be out of it now, and we would all be able to say, we'd be able to get all the benefits. But we're not getting that.
Ramifications on business are going to be huge for this.
Absolutely.
Why wouldn't you just move your business down to England if they're going like the clappers, and we're just go? It's like the jackrabbit versus the tortoise.
Yep.
We're going so slow while their economy is firing on all cylinders. The amount of people who might lose their jobs over this, just cast aside. As no thought given to that. The businesses that are going to go to the wall, cast aside, no thought to that as well. There's just no thought process in this, and it's just like destroying sections of the economy, lockdown by lockdown by lockdown, until there's nothing left. Until there's nothing left.
Val Mortimer, I agree 100%. Should have been a one nation approach. That's right. You've got to agree with me. That's always a good thing. But I think we have this, just ongoing the idea. I think when the devolution settlement was made, I didn't think that anyone would thought that it would have come to this level where we basically have this kind of power-crazed administration trying to do anything that's different, trying to extend its power through excessive restrictions. And I said this a few times in the show. It's why are people in Scotland? Why do people in Scotland have less rights than people in the rest of the UK? That's not right. It's not right. It should have been. We should be able to, live our lives the same way as other people in the rest of the country. It's really terrible.
It is
well,
terrible.
I think we're a little bit conscious of time moving on, so we're going to move on.
Well, it's just before I've seen this comment for Douglas Hall come in. Not many reopened bars, I have noticed. I mean, if you walked in the high streets, you walk down your favourite shopping places, the amount of businesses that aren't there anymore, it's just scary. It really is.
And you have to wonder whether that's deliberate, because I can't remember if I've said it on here, but I know someone who works in hospitality who said that he was in the company of Sturgeon at a function at which various hospitality business owners were present, and Sturgeon opined that if she had her way, every licensed premise in Scotland would be closed.
Well, that doesn't surprise us. She's a joyless individual.
Yep.
So,
indeed.
okay, coming up next, we are going to, what time is it? It is time for Zoomer of the Week. Mm-hmm. Certainly the best graphics ever.
Yep.
Created.
Let's can we address this comment just very briefly? So Rita Johnson, I love you guys, but how do we get rid, really? So you might have seen the video I put out just a few days ago. I sort of come to the conclusion that the only way we're going to get her out of office is if we laugh at it. We need to make her so, every time her name comes up, you're just blessed with laughter because you just know how the stupidity of the woman. So we just need to keep hammering her with the memes, keep scrutinising her, and we will get rid of her eventually.
Yeah, I think that's a very good approach. And I think that, I remember there's a famous story about the Ku Klux Klan, which I can barely say. And they had quite a lot of power, and people thought they were a very powerful organization. And one guy infiltrated them, and he basically, a journalist, I think, and he basically ridiculed all of the little ceremonies, and he just made a fool of them, and so showed how ridiculous they were at all times, and the organization never recovered from it. Mm-hmm. I think nationalism is a brittle curse. It's hanging together by a thread, but it's quite a very strong thread. And we have to, everything we do, there's memes, articles, talking to friends, everything we do makes a difference, because we will get at a certain point to a tipping point, and that tipping point will happen. It's going to happen. The laws of political gravity mean it's going to happen, and it's a bit harder for nationalism because of the way it works. But we will get there in the end, and I think we will be. Blessed be the meme makers, but I hope that the majority will announce some ways in which we will be able to ridicule.
Fight back. We're going to fight back. More.
Quite right. Ridicule is something they're
because
clearly scared of.
Our opposition clearly aren't fighting back hard enough, and that's why we exist.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Actually, let's do that again then. Okay.
Favourite segment of the week, Mark?
Why, David? Why don't you start?
Sure, I'll start. I have a nomination for Zoomer of the Week, and that is the increasingly desperate SNP MSP for Glasgow Cathcart, James Dornan. This week, Dornan has further disgraced himself and sullied Holyrood with his appalling description of the Queen being at the head of a pyramid of entitlement. Apparently, Dornan justifies this because Her Majesty and her family own several dwelling places throughout the UK, and he disapproves of this seemingly. Presumably, he thinks that the royal family should dispose of its palaces up and down the country and move into more modest quarters, like maybe, I don't know, a flat above the pub, the Corona and Shawlands, maybe, I don't know. I don't know what he's got in mind. But Dornan is a particularly objectionable individual. He is clearly someone who has very, very strong Republican beliefs, very strong pro-United Ireland beliefs, and his presence genuinely makes Scottish politics a far worse place. He is long overdue, not only a nomination, but a selection as Zoomer of the Week. So this week's nomination for me is the wretched James Dornan.
Oh, yes, he has a long history of
The wretched.
Wasn't he the guy who said that the buses in Edinburgh were
Anti-Catholic, yes. They were anti-Irish racist loathing buses. That's right, yeah.
Okay,
It strikes me as a sort of character
some
who
people,
likes to
you know,
inject sectarianism into everything.
Yep.
Yeah, some people see that type of thing everywhere, and it's true that sectarian is an issue in Scotland, of course.
Indeed.
But sectarian buses are maybe taking it a little bit too far. As for the Queen, I think most people, whether you're a Republican or not, should understand that the Queen is the Crown Estates pay quite a lot of money to the UK government, and I think that's quite well established. So it seems a bit of a strange issue, but it's maybe perhaps he thinks it's an easy target for his groups.
Very much so.
Moving on, let's see. Were any people make any mentions in that?
Oh yeah.
Here's all here we got. Why did it take until today for Sturgeon to comment on the Platinum Jubilee? Did we forget on Tuesday? So there is that type of thing. Of course, they don't want to acknowledge anything. It comes back to that kind of earlier point. It's like, I'm sure the Queen would send, Nicola Sturgeon congratulations on something happened to her.
100% she would. Yep.
So but they don't do it the other way around. I mean, of course, they're committed to breaking down the UK. And someone says here, whether you like her or not, the Queen has done her duty above reproach.
Absolutely right.
Okay, now who knows what's going to happen, later on, but that will come to that when we come to that. Okay, next, let's go. Niall.
Right, so I've got a couple choices this week, and I'm pretty sure you're going to love them, guys, right? So my Zoomer of the Week is a toss-up between Councillor Julie Mackenzie in Oban, I believe. So she floated the notion. So you might have heard the news about Jimmy Carr over his Holocaust joke.
Yep.
Right? So she had a tweet saying, Jimmy Carr should be prosecuted for his hate speech and his joke. But not only him, we should prosecute his laughing audience.
Oh.
Right? So this is it shows you the warped, twisted mindset that these nationalists have. So if you think about it, if you're at a comedy club and, a comedian makes a joke, the laughter is involuntary. You cannot help laughter in certain situations. So you could be criminalised for an involuntary action. Is this what she's calling for?
Well, I think it's the idea
just pure
of
ridiculousness.
People who would go there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, basically, she wants to say, Jimmy Carr. If you actually want to go and see Jimmy Carr, you should be criminalised. Now, to be honest, we have some feeling of that. We believe if you go and see Janie Gardley, who is known for racist and offensive tweets,
that you're going to hear some.
You shouldn't be going there at all, right? Mm-hmm. And because I actually think there is a difference between making offensive tweets about people that aren't actually humorous and telling jokes. Now, Carr's joke, I think, well, of course, I mean, all his jokes are off colour pretty much, I think, but it's an interesting thought. It's a thought experiment almost. It says, we're so busy talking about this one group that were murdered in Auschwitz and so on, but we forget about these other groups. And that's and also it does bring to light the idea that people are anti-traveler and so on. So there's all these things going on behind it. It's not basically that, it's just,
of course,
he hates these people or anything. There's definitely more nuanced take.
But we're not finished. So it was a toss-up, and who I finally landed on was the first sibling and camel impersonator, Gillian Sturgeon. So she's moved on for selling Avon, and now she's doing tarot readings. And by the way, her admin is so inundated by requests for tarot readings that she can't keep up with them. So, I mean, I wish I could get a tarot reading. I wonder how much it would cost. And I thought maybe at the end of this, we might have a wee bit of fun and we might pick a tarot card and see what we get.
Brilliant.
Oh my God. I mean, can this family get any more dysfunctional? Can it? I just don't think it can.
It's quite unbelievable. The stories coming out in the press about the First Minister's sister, really, I mean, what are they thinking? Shouldn't she have a word with her? And just say, look, could you tone it down a wee bit, please? I mean, you're making a show of yourself.
This is her toning it down, David. I'm pretty sure this is her toning it down. She's already heard the words. And in fact, we'll just go tarot reading this week. Okay.
Well, I talked to Mary about this, and I was like, well, I'm not too comfortable with this because, the person who's a sibling,
it feels a bit off pace.
Well, I mean, a lot of people have issues in their family and so on, but I think the Mary said to me, well, that she's riding off the coattails of her sister. She's using her sister's fame to gain money and attention. And I think she shouldn't be. I think she's one of these people that just shouldn't be on social media. Stop. She's far too much personal drama, and wanting to show that out in public is. I've been there, done that. It's not really the thing. Not really the thing to do.
We'll have to see if this comment is right. First Sister's Facebook page actually says "sister of the FM." The First Minister as a selling point, so she's absolutely riding on it.
Right, that's
my goodness,
not very good at all. But I'm trying to find this tarot card.
Randomtarotcard.com, and we'll see what Mark gets.
Yeah.
We'll see what David gets, and we'll see what I get.
Let's see if there's a new job in the offing for the First Minister as well. We're at it.
And maybe we should pick a tarot card for Nicola while we're here.
Yep.
Why not?
Unbelievable.
Have you ever done a tarot card reading?
No, I think Mark's going inaudible, bless him. Is he?
No, he's just trying to
get unfortunately,
I'm
having some trouble getting to the random tarot card.
Oh, never mind.
I don't know why it's not appearing in this. I'm using a new browser and it's not there. Right, well, okay, here we go.
Oh, okay,
right.
Go.
Using some mind reading.
Look at this.
The Fool. That's what it is. Upside down.
How did you know, Mark? How did you know?
As it was.
I picked the 8 of Cups, whatever that means, as well. Who knows? It is really embarrassing, honestly.
Yep.
Scotland must be the most biggest unintentional comedy show that there's ever been.
Yep.
Truly.
Indeed.
Well, that's thingy. Okay, move. Right. Is breaking up the UK a respectable idea? Well, according to Alex Massey of the Times Appeasement Division, it is. The other day, I was quite astounded to read an article. He wrote what most people think is quite a good article about the pensions issue. It didn't actually really bring anything new to the argument at all, or any new thinking. But it did have embedded on it this sentence: independence is a respectable cause, now debased by its promoters' untruths. This reminds me somewhat of the thing we were talking about earlier on with Murdo Fraser. You know, here's a great thing. Oh no, it's not really great. That's like, it wasn't really a great thing to begin with. So this is a pattern. We see a pattern of this in the Times over the past year, where we've had a number of articles by them who have this idea of always giving the benefit of the doubt to nationalists and nationalism. For example, I'll read out this quote by Kenny Farquharson. When again, he writes a whole article about othering the English, how the SNP exists to other the English. And then in that he says, and here in Scotland, I have another hope. I wonder if Scottish nationalism can pursue independence from England without taking the low road of othering the English. Can it be done? Is there a high road? Can the Yes movement avoid this moral peril? I suspect not, but I would love to be proved wrong. It's like
the ship's already sailed.
14 years of disaster, everything going to hell, education, services, ferry scandals, loads of political and other types of scandals for years have been going on. Isn't that enough to show that nationalism, Scottish nationalism, doesn't work? Not only that, the Scottish nationalism, the idea of an independent Scotland was rejected by the Scots, right? It's not like it's an untested idea. We can say, all right, you know, Scottish nationalism or independence, you know, really we should put that to a vote and stuff. It's like we did put it to a vote. It's a rejected idea, and there is no redeeming feature. But these guys sitting there in the Times, they're thinking, oh, I have to be balanced. I have to do whatever it is to make it appear as though I'm you know, a beardy guy thinking I can, you know, I know everything, and I'm so, you know, so in touch. And you're like, no, this is not the way it works. And I say to the people, I mean, I wrote a whole article about this, which I've got somewhere or other. Oh, that's not it. Okay. Well, okay, let's put this up. Did a poll on Twitter. Is breaking up the UK a respectable cause? Well, you can see how that goes. And I wrote an article about that in the Majority, which is the lead article. You can have a look at it. And basically, you know, you never hear these journalists say, you know, Brexit is a respectable cause, but you never hear them say English nationalism is a respectable cause. Exactly. But never. They would never ever hear that. And I think that a lot of these journalists, basically, they could be convinced that nationalism is a good idea somehow. That's what they're saying. And that to me means like, well, what would convince you? Yeah. It's like, are you so easily bought, right? You know, and it's one of these things. It's like, we've tested it; it doesn't work. Why persist in the illusion that it could work?
And really we've had the vote. And we've had the vote.
We have had the vote.
We've had the vote. Really we've won it. So, I mean, it's just torment at this point. It's just torment. And going back to the pensions, right? It was almost 10 years, or 7 years ago, from the referendum, and they still don't know.
No,
they still don't know. That's. I mean, how long does it take for you to come up with the answer? What, a decade? Come on.
They seem to have a better grasp of it 7 years ago, in fact, because the white paper, as I said, oh, yeah, we'll pay the pensions. 7 years on, they're now saying, no, actually, I think the UK should pay it. It's not going to happen, guys. But I don't get what the Times... Oh, I see it, yeah, the Majority.
Because you can have a look at it on the Majority website. Let's see some comments in here as well.
Nationalism never works. You need capitalism for countries to flourish. Quite right, Anne Smith.
Apologists. It's getting beyond a joke. Why would you want to be independent? Well, this is a question. It's not so much why you want to be independent, but why would you want to break up the UK?
Already are independent.
We are indeed.
Yes. So yeah, I think this is a real issue for us. In when the media constantly gives nationalists the benefit of the doubt, they would never give to anyone else, and that's not a situation that is good for the country, what we're ending up is disharmony. They're pushing disharmony. They're pushing disunity all the time. And they need to get with the programme and say, there is no path to a second referendum. Your pensions stuff, it doesn't even matter about talking about pensions. It doesn't matter you talking about anything, in fact, because there's no path to a second referendum. Therefore, there will be no independence. That's it. End of story. Move on. Now we're going to talk about all the screw-ups in health and education and so on that you've done while you're trying to blindside us with this whole thing about independence.
I think
that's what they should be saying.
It is like a sidetrack for the SNP is the independence debate. It seems like a sidetrack. Well, they just ruin every public service. You know, I just run everything into the ground, and then, oh, by the way, we're going to independence. Oh, but we're going to have a referendum. It never happens. Never happens.
No,
the Nationals.
All right, David, I'm going to let you decide today.
Okay, right. Well, my decision today. I hear Niall's nominations. Both he's made a strong case for both of them there. James Dornan to me is simply not sufficiently significant to be anything of the week. So I'm going to give it to the Times Appeasement Division.
Oh, really?
Because I am. The reason being, I think they are guilty of very sloppy, very lazy journalism. But there's stuff like, I really hope so that you could be a better sort of nationalism. That doesn't even make any sense. You know it's impossible, Kenny. Just stop being pathetic. So yeah, I'm going to give it to Times because I think their flagrant disregard for the settled will of the Scottish people and their muckraking, rabble-rousing attempts at hedging their bets on the question of independence, I find it quite disgraceful. So yeah, you win it this week. Times Appeasement Division.
I'm glad. I'm tired of winning it every week, guys. I'm tired. We've got a last sort of shooty comment there. Do you have faith in the trains moving into public ownership?
Yeah, is it Rail Track that's moved into, or is it ScotRail? Is it ScotRail that's moved?
ScotRail has now been nationalised.
Oh,
God help us. God help us.
Well, maybe that's maybe that'll be Nicola's new job. Should be a clippy on a train. There you go.
Right. Tickets, please. Tickets, please.
Well, they decided to take it over, but at the same time they've announced that they're cutting services, and they all want us to get on the. They keep saying this thing. I was on Twitter there just before we came on, and it's like we need to get people out of their cars, and I'm like, all the cars are going to become electric cars pretty soon. Within 10 years, the majority of cars will be electric, so there'll be no pollution. So why do you want people get out of their cars? Because it's about control. They want people doing public transport, and just not to be able to go around and do their own stuff. And it's so obvious.
You shouldn't have the freedom to go anywhere you want in a car.
That's no good. My dad always used to say that actually to me. He used to say they don't want you to have cars because they have less power when you do. I mean, he actually said that. And for years and years, I was like, and here it is.
Here we are.
Exactly that. All right. Thank you, David, for choosing me. I hope maybe Niall will be lucky again next week. We're going to wrap up now. So let me get let rustle some papers here. Rustle.
Yes.
Let's get to the end.
Yeah.
All right. So a big thank you, of course, to everyone who has been watching us tonight. We have, as I said earlier on, we have people from the UK Union Voice. Hopefully next week we'll have even more people come on as we start making partnerships with other large Facebook pages. If you do have such a page, please contact us and we'd be happy to work with you. A big thank you to Mary, who is doing all the chat in the background and dealing with your comments and captions. And finally, a big thank you to everyone who donated to the podcast.
And all you beautiful people watching the now, and don't forget to share after the fact. So it will come out on YouTube as well. So we need to get the subscribers up everywhere. We want to become the force that takes down the SNP. That's what we are becoming, and we are so close to doing it.
Yeah,
so close.
Well, our first step is to get more people watching the podcast and more people getting involved. You can get involved, write your comments, and we love all that. And then we strengthen numbers, we grow, we get our power, and we can do the next stage. I'd like to thank you all for joining us. We will see you again next Thursday at 7 p.m. Hopefully on the dot this time. We had a few technical issues. So it's good night from me.
And it's good night from me as well.
Good night from me, and it's good night from them. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all very much for watching. We'll see you next
See you next week, guys.
week.